Welcome back to the beginning of a new series. This is going to be what we're going to title, I guess, Blue Collar to No Collar is the name of the series. And interesting stories from Ed. And obviously, for those of you that have tuned into our previous series, you know that obviously Mr. Soo Hoo is a great storyteller, but he's also very cheeky. He takes what he learns and puts them into play in just about anywhere. And sometimes it's an obscure little detail, but sometimes it's also something that we take for granted. And then he applies it back to the visits that we have with our customers these days. So I'm interested to see what Ed is going to talk to us about today. Ed, what have you got teed up for us today?
Hey, thanks, Esco. Hi, everyone. The theme of blue collar to no collar, it's kind of a different phase in my career path, right? Which is very interesting in many respects. And this story is what I call stretch the box. You heard
Okay.
you heard of comments like out of the box and so on. I actually been pushing this concept out called stretch the box. So you may remember the line in the 1994 movie Forrest Gump. He's sitting at a bus stop and striking up a chat with the nurse, and he
Right.
said basically life is like a box of chocolates. That's what his mother said. You never know what you're going to get. In this story, the box is a metaphor for how I see life in
Okay.
general and even in sales. There's the box you're defined by, the one you put yourself in, the box that people put you in. And then there's the box that you need to stretch in order to grow and learn. So this story actually from the box is how I got the name of being called the sheriff.
The, the sheriff?
The sheriff. So
All
it's
right.
kind of fascinating and mysterious at the same time. In my senior
Mystery.
year of high school, I attended about 65% of my classes. Another way of saying I cut a ton of my classes. And I ended up getting a scholarship to the University of San Francisco. Don't know how, don't know why.
Didn't
And,
ask.
if you looked at my report cards, they were abysmal, right?
Huh.
Miss Hamilton gave me an F in chemistry. Mr. Foster gave me a D and basically said I was a rebel. So I went anyway to college, and I found out, no surprise, I was not prepared. And I kind of lost my way. So I ended up hanging out at the USF rec room down in this one building. And in the rec room, there were 8 pool tables. The sounds of the balls clicking and clacking, combined with the colors of the tables, made for what I call an intoxicating curiosity. And this is where my fascination with the game of pool started. I started to pick up the game and became somewhat obsessed with it. I dropped out of college, played pool at Chino's Pool Hall in Oakland, where I hung out with guys that had a horseshoe hanging around their neck. It's a big guy. And the jukebox blaring away, amongst other fun places. And I bebopped around for quite a while trying to find myself. In
Right.
a general sense, pool players are not highly regarded, right? They're kind of thought of riffraff and the seedy image, thanks to the movies like The Hustler, right?
Color
And
money.
even a musical, The Music Man, but with Robert Preston.
Oh.
He actually said a caliber of disaster indicated by a pool table is in your community. Pool is the first step to the depths of degradation. Thanks a lot, Mr. Preston. So I started to take up the game of pocket pool, and a little bit more seriously, I found out that this game had tons of really good players who were competitive. It was a commoditized skill set, hard to differentiate, and crowded. Gee, sounds like how we compete in our market today, doesn't it?
I was gonna say, yeah.
So lots of good players, better skills than I had, and I had a hard time standing out. I couldn't make a living. So one night, I saw a game played by a different caliber of players. No shouting, no cursing, no spitting, calm players with soft murmurs of recognition and nods, very gentlemanly. They played on a table with no pockets. A
Wait,
game.
wait, 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 wait. They play pool with no pockets?
This is a very different game. So it's a game played by a whole different level of player and disciplines. No horseshoe necklaces. So it's a game with no pockets and it's called three cushion billiards.
Okay.
The object of the game in this on this table is there are two white cue balls, one marked differently with a little dot on it, so you always use the same cue ball. The objective is for my cue ball to touch my opponent's ball and a red ball. But before I touch the second ball, the rule to earn a point or a billiard is I must touch three or more rails before I touch the second ball.
Hmm.
So it's any combination of ball, a rail ball, and two more rails, and then the other ball, etc. Right? Someone with too much time on their hands actually figured out how many different shots are on this table based on that requirement. 64 quadrillion shots are
How many
possible.
zeros is in quadrat? Never mind.
Too many zeros. I didn't go to college for that.
Yeah,
So,
right.
oh my gosh, what a game, right? Three cushion billiards requires judgment, brains, and maturity. So I cross over from Oakland, the ugly city across the bay from San Francisco, as we call ourselves, right? And I go to San Francisco and I walk into the Palace. The Palace is a historic pool hall. The best of the best show up. Bud Harris, Masako Katsura, the first lady of billiards, the best in the world. She was less than 4 feet, 4.5 feet tall, but she was a giant killer. Willie Hoppy, Welker Cochran, and so on. So I started playing on the table like I'm hitting the balls really hard. I thought it was a power game. Count the rails,
Yeah.
and this man sitting at the bar was watching me, and he finally got up and walked, actually kind of waddled over, looked like Yoda. He walked up to my table. He was an Asian male, about 70 years old, a little wrinkly, and about 5 feet tall. And it was Jimmy Lee, one of the best in the world. He sidled up next to me and goes, you play bad. I said, Jimmy, it's a power game, right? He goes, no, not power game, brain game. You got no brain. I said, Jimmy, he goes, let's make deal. I said, what's the deal, Jimmy? He goes, I teach you game, everything I know. I said, and? He goes, you give me a ride home, Chinatown, every night. So that was the deal. So over the next year, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in that short period of time, I mastered 17 systems to calculate and calibrate shots. I found out I had a proficiency for the game. I could actually visualize shots. I ended up being number 6 in the US. Played in Japan, France, Spain, Korea, traveled all over playing games and tournaments. I even had special glasses, kind of like this, but they were
Right.
crooked. I made the nose pads crooked so they were kind of an angle. And then I had band-aids holding my frames together. So when I walked in, the image of a rube, right? So I'd walk in a room and I'd play games with people like Three Finger Charlie, Joe the Plumber, AJ the Fanatic, Hank the Prank. We all had nicknames. This is Ergo the Sheriff, but that's later in the story. And these nicknames are really about some very interesting dynamics of characters and the like. So the movies depicted pool as a gray, dark at times world with like Fast Eddie Felson, Minnesota Fats, but my experience playing pool and billiards were filled with color, fidelity, and curiosity. So one night I'm playing a game with a guy named Boston Shorty, not from Boston, not short, but that's his nickname. So we were close in this tournament game playing for money. Then Shorty left me a shot. I looked at the shot, I could not figure it out. Again, 64 quadrillion shots,
Right.
17 systems. I went through all 17 systems. I still could not visualize the shot. So I was really struggling. Shorty walked up to me. He goes, you don't see the shot, do you? I, I said, no, Shorty, I don't. I went through all my, he goes, look, here's something I'll teach you. I go, what? I said, I'll teach you a system. It's called Spot on the Wall. Here's one of the best in the world with so much confidence to take this rookie, teach him a lesson. He goes, stand at the head of the table where the label is. I said, okay. He goes, look at the far right corner of the table. I said, yeah. Take an imaginary piece of thread, extend that thread from the corner 10 feet high, 45 degrees out, and mark a spot on the wall where the thread ends. And I'm going like, okay, I see it. He goes, you just stretched your table. I said, what do you mean? I see a spot on the wall. He goes, yeah, but you just stretch your table 10 feet higher, 15 feet longer. Now take all the systems that you know that you're limited by, physical knowledge of the systems based on physics and the like, and all your experiences. Now imagine your shot without those limits, and now calculate your shot. You extended your table. You stretched your table. So I studied the imaginary table, mapped out my box of skills and systems for about 30 seconds. I finally said, you know what? I think I see it. He goes, take the shot. I stroked the shot and I missed it by a hair. Shorty walked by me and just winked. He goes, now I'm going to kick your butt, which he did. He trounced me. Well, what I found out, a couple things. One, there's always someone better than you.
Yeah.
And at the same time, he was someone who was not afraid to share a system, a secret, right? So three things: always listed as someone who looks like Yoda, never play shorty for money, and learn how to stretch your limits and the box that you know, the box that you're in. It really gave me perspectives on how I look at business and a lot of my chats with clients and even CIOs, because they're limited by their titles, what they do. They're limited by the constraints of their current technology and how they use it, but they're not stretching the opportunity, the mindset, and the capabilities as to how it can apply to their business, or in this context, the game. So I
Mm-hmm.
learned a lot playing billiards. It's a game of not just calculations and systems, but it's a game of imagination, innovation, and it's a game of differentiation. No
Right.
different from what and how we sell. We have to be innovative, imaginative, and differentiated. So I learned a lot when I played for 3 years every day but Christmas. And through that, it's not just playing the games and the systems, but learning about people,
Yeah.
motivations,
Right.
psyche. How do they approach their games? What are their skills? What are their knowledge sets? And expose the limits of their box. No different when you do research on a client. Then I would calibrate and calculate all the different parameters that I understand about the player, the table, the environment, so that when I walk out of that room, I knew what I wanted as a result after playing that game. And I had to think through, did I want to basically decimate the player and never have to come back,
Mm.
scorched earth? Did I want to string the person along so that I can always have a game and dinner on the table when I needed money because I knew I could beat them?
Right.
So, in calibrating, what were the skills of that person? What was their box or their limitation? My job was to assess their skills and play within the parameters of what they could do so that they always felt or sensed they could be competitive with me and they would always stay and play in the game. I don't call it hustling. It's more what I call it what you want as an outcome. That's being a little bit softer about it.
Right.
And the approach actually prepared me for sales. Sometimes you can be overly smart or overly prepared with a client and they will shut you down.
Yeah. Or pivot.
Sometimes, yeah, and sometimes you're not prepared enough. And this is what Shorty taught me, right? He saw that I was not prepared. He saw that I was limited, and yet he was still willing to show me a new system. So there are a number of things that I learned from the box that you put yourself in, and sometimes you limit yourself. The box that people put you in, people categorize you, they typecast you, they automatically calibrate you. And then that the box that you stretch to blow them away.
All right, let's talk about the box that you opened a call with.
Yep.
This sheriff notion, where
Yeah.
yeah, so okay, my box is stretched in calibration and figuring out psyches and all that stuff. Why do they call you the sheriff?
So one day I walked into my pool hall. All my buddies, my colleagues, such as they were hanging out. They said, "Hey Ed, we got your name." I'm like, "Oh my God, please don't make it something. You can never give yourself the names.
Right.
Your colleagues got to do that, right?" Um, and I said, "Please don't make it something stupid like running water, all right? Like something cool, right?" And they said, "Oh no, 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 no. Your name is the sheriff." I'm like, "Ooh, I kind of like." I said,
Okay.
"What's the story behind being called the sheriff? They said, because you never take a game unless you can lock them up. Right?
Nice.
So
Nice.
for years, I was known to be the sheriff. I do miss those days, right? Walking in a room and being called the sheriff and get the nod from the colleagues and the players. It was a gas. The most fun I ever did. Almost as much fun as being a truck driver, but that's another story.
For
So, but as the sheriff, I knew how to work the room, work the player, and work the game. When you think about what we do as a company, you as a sales professional, we
yeah.
do the same thing. We have to
Yeah.
be the sheriff. We have to know how to lock them up by understanding and knowing what the limits are, and then know how to stretch that box for that client to see the room differently and to measure their results differently. And I tell you, when you do that, you'll be walking all day like the sheriff. It is the most fun and satisfying experience you'll ever have.
You got tons of little zingers for us, Ed. Tons of them. I love it.
And last thing, right? I was coaching one of my player friends, and he was talking about kill shots.
Mm-hmm.
And a kill shot is, what people think is like the winning shot. And he goes,
Right.
"This is the winning shot, right?" I said, "No, the winning shot is a fait accompli. It's a done deal. A kill shot is used during the game, and you show this shot when you want to take the heart out of your opponent. When you make that shot, your opponent will look at it, and their whole body language will change. The shoulders will slump, the corner of their mouth will twitch, and their pupils would just go blank. That's when you know you got them. And so all these things are part of the game. It is part of the sales game and is part of being called the sheriff. Take the shot. It's a ton of fun.
Ed, really appreciate this story. Of course, zinger, punchlines, little tidbits to learn. I can't wait for the next one. And I encourage everyone to tune in for the next one. We'll have one for you shortly. With that, let's say goodbye to everybody, Ed. Oh, yeah, crooked glasses. Bye, everybody.
See ya.